Hi, this is Dr. Gregory Sadler. I'm a professor of philosophy and the president and founder of an educational consulting company called Reason.io, where we put philosophy into practice. I've studied and taught philosophy for over 20 years, and I find that many people run into difficulties reading classic philosophical texts. Sometimes it's the way things are said or how the text is structured. But the concepts themselves are not always that complicated, and that's where I come in. To help students and lifelong learners, I've been producing longer lecture videos and posting them to YouTube. Many viewers say they find them useful. What you're currently watching is part of a new series of shorter videos, each of them focused on one core concept from an important philosophical text. I hope you find it useful as well. In Chapter 9 of Plutarch's work on moral virtue, there is an interesting but also potentially confusing and perhaps in some respects off-target critical discussion that Plutarch is engaging in against the Stoics, actually naming one of them, Chyrsippus, in the discussion over what we often translate as the good emotional states, which is a way of rendering the eupatheiai in Greek, which literally means emotional states that are felt well. It's translated here as something like right sensibilities to emotion, which is just fine, I think, for that. And some of Plutarch's discussions seem to be a bit off in this, but let's see what it is that he does have to say about them. So he begins by saying that my opponents, the people that he's arguing against, the Stoics, have to concede the arguments because of their obvious truth, but they persist in calling things the wrong term. So they're engaging in, he actually uses the word euphemism, eupheme, which is a Greek term. And ultimately, at the end of this discussion, he's going to say that the way that they're articulating things seems to be more sophistic, that is, given to what a sophist would do, and not really philosophic, right? Not what a good philosopher would engage in. So what are the examples that he gives of this? Well, calling feeling shame modesty. So eidesthai, to feel shame, that's pretty straightforward. Eischunesthai, right? And this is kind of interesting because for the Stoics, part of the virtue of temperance does consist in modesty, So maybe that's what he has in mind here. Much more straightforward, calling pleasure joy, or more literally, feeling pleasure, heidesthai, to be feeling joy, hydrein, or rejoicing. And then finally, he talks about calling fears, and here he uses a noun, tous phobos, actual fears, things that we fear. Cautions, translated here as precautions, but cautions is typically how we do it, eulabeia, right? And the joy and cautions, well, those are among the three main classifications of good emotional states that the Stoics recognized. So he's going to complain that what the Stoics should have done with these is to distinguish between the emotions that are being called by these, what he calls soft names, right, which are those which attach themselves to reason. They are reasonable emotional states. And all the other emotions, which are called by harsher names when the emotions oppose to themselves to or fight with, and even do violence to, biadzomena, to the rational part of ourselves. So shame is a harsher emotion. Modesty is a softer, a nicer, more rational emotion. And you could say, well, I mean, the Stoics seem to be doing this. That's part of why they made the distinction between the good emotional states and then all the other emotions which are problematic. So it doesn't seem completely on target. He goes on as well and says that, convicted by their tears and tremblings and changes of color. So Stoics don't really remain unemotional. They sometimes cry. They sometimes get scared about things, change color, turn white, or maybe if they get angry, get red in the face. He says, well, they call these emotions things like grief and fear. They call them compunctions and perplexities. And they gloss over desires, epithumeiais, with a different term, eagerness is prothumeiais, right? And it's a little unclear exactly how much euphemizing is supposed to be going on here. But the big criticism is that the Stoics are kind of playing fast and loose here with the emotional states. Then, shortly after this, he's going to say, well, they actually get some things right. But he's giving with one hand and taking back with another. So he'll say these same people, the Stoics, call those joys, volitions, and precautions of theirs right sensibilities to emotion. That is the eupatheiai, right? And not actually lacks of emotion, apatheiai. And here he uses it in the plural. So not lacking, say, fear, not lacking pleasure, not lacking desire, but having it in the right way, in a rational way. And that's the way that the Stoics typically would describe that. They would say that caution is, in fact, rationally felt fear. Not every fear is caution. You can easily have excessive fear, and they labeled a number of different kinds. Or the same thing with volition or desire towards something. That's rational desire that you should be feeling. So, for example, the desire to have somebody to live your life with in friendship, that is a rational desire. The desire for your friend to always be with you and agree with you and everything, not rational desire, right? That would be something off base. So he says, okay, the Stoics are calling these things, what they're supposed to, using these terms correctly. Now here's where Plutarch starts adding in a bit of his own Middle Platonist viewpoint and going away from what the Stoics themselves think, but it's not completely at odds with it. He says that a right sensibility consists in the case where reason doesn't destroy or remove an airuntas. It's not taking away the emotion itself, or the passion, the pathos, right? But rather it composes it, or we might say, beautifies it, puts it in proper order, kosmuntos, right? And it arranges it, tachontos, it arranges the way the emotion is directed in the souls of what he calls temperate persons. And so the word here is, people who have sophrosune, sophruntos. And maybe here, given the context, we have to think not just of that particular virtue of temperance, but of being virtuous in general. So, reason doesn't remove the emotion altogether, but regulates it in certain ways within the souls of virtuous people, so they could feel fear, for example, but they feel it at the right time, in the right way, to the right degree, for the right reason. This actually starts to sound fairly Aristotelian when you frame it that way, right? So he says that in the case of evil and incontinent, or people lacking self-controlled people, when their judgment tells them, for example, they should love their parents in place of a favorite or a mistress, they can't do this. But when the judgment bids them to love the courtesan and the flatterer, they immediately do this sort of thing. And he's going to say, listen, emotion and passion, pathos, and judgment, krisis, they're just not the same thing. If they were, then as soon as we make a judgment, we'd feel that emotion. So we might judge, well, I should love that person or I should hate that person. And if they were exactly the same thing, which is what the Stoics do say, that emotions are in fact judgments or opinions, they're not denying that there's feeling involved, but they think that essentially an emotion is that judgment, usually a wrong judgment, then the emotion would follow immediately from it, but that doesn't happen in every case. And you can say, well, okay, that's fine. Where are you going with this, Plutarch? So he says that even these Stoics must agree that not every judgment is an emotion, but only that which sets into motion a violent and excessive impulse. So, this is, again, horme, a Stoic term that gets used. It's kind of a broad thing. And the Stoics could say, well, yeah, not every judgment is an emotion. Whoever said that they were? So it's a little unclear why Plutarch is bringing this up. He wants to claim, well, that proves that judgment and emotion are two different things, and the Stoics are wrong in, essentially equating them. But it doesn't seem like he needs that, because this seems to be exactly what the Stoics agree to, that how you tell the good emotional states apart from the bad emotions or passions is the fact that they are irrational, that the impulse in them is violent and excessive, biaiu, right? That's the word for force or violence. Kai plena nadzuses, going beyond what it should do, excessive, right? And when we look at the discussions of Stoic treatments of the emotions, that seems to be exactly what they're saying. So it's not clear what Plutarch's target is in saying that, but he evidently thought that this is a good clinching point. The last thing that he brings up, as I mentioned, he singles out Chyrsippus by name, and it makes sense that he would do so. We don't really have anything other than fragments by Chyrsippus, but Chyrsippus wrote a lot, and he did write on the emotions. So Chyrsippus is going to define two states that the Stoics actually placed underneath cardinal virtues: endurance, which is a type of courage, and self-control, which is a type of temperance. The Aristotelians and Middle Platonists like Plutarch, they don't treat these as parts of virtue. They actually view these as different kinds of states that aren't quite yet virtue, but are sort of on the way. Endurance, karteria, has to do with dealing with pains and doing what you should do, right? So you're out in the hot sun and you don't quit pulling the weeds because you show endurance and get the job done. Self-control is sort of going in the other way. It's your desires for pleasures. You keep them in check even though they're there and they're pushing you. That's enkrateia, literally like keeping self-mastery, we could say. And he says that these are defined as states, hexis, right, following the convictions of reason, to hairunti logo. So logos is reason, and hairunti there is what reason chooses, what reason selects, right? So it's not really convictions, but more like the prioritizations or the selections of reason. And again, so Chrysippus could define things this way that would make perfect sense. And he says, Chrysippus is forced by the evidence to acknowledge what within us follows is different from that which it follows when it's persuaded, or fights against when it's not persuaded. And that just doesn't seem to follow from what Chrysippus is saying. So Plutarch, a lot of his targets here when it comes to the Stoic good emotional states, or indeed parts of the virtues, which he seems to lump in with good emotional states to some degree. His criticisms here seem to be a bit off target, but it is nonetheless kind of good to look at this part of the work and see what the Stoics had to say and learn something about what Chrysippus himself had to say about two parts of virtue.